This meeting is called to order. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Wednesday, August 27th regular meeting of the Board of Education. I'd like to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And tonight, for a moment of silence, I'd like you to remain standing as we honor the victims of today's horrific shooting in Minnesota. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to turn it over at this time to Mrs. Trombetta for the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's enjoying the last days of summer. I'm going to go right into two presentations that we have tonight. The first one's going to be the polling place location by Ms. Florio.
Good evening. I put together some information based on some of our past discussions. We were interested in looking at the potential of cutting down some of our polling locations. At the current moment, on the side of your screen, you'll see that we are using our 10 elementary schools. It definitely is the sentiment throughout Suffolk County that we're trying to minimize the voting within the schools, especially elementary schools, for a number of reasons, but safety, cost factors, things of that nature are definitely, the main points of what we're trying to eliminate, having the elementary schools be involved. So there are three options on the right side of the screen. So option one is having one polling location, similar to what we did here when we had the revote in June of 2024. Option two would be two polling locations, such as both high school north and east. And then option three could be, at the moment, our three middle schools. So I listed some pros and cons. Obviously, a pro of the current situation is having the 10 elementary schools a nearby polling location for our residents. The cons that come along with that, it's definitely the most costly option. It requires a lot of staff to man that. It does present a delay when there's an issue with either the voting machine or if a voter can't be found within the registration logs. There's a couple of different scenarios that have been called into question within the past couple of years. And also a lack of transparency. We are then shutting down the polls, and people are then driving the tapes back to my office. If anyone has ever witnessed that on budget vote night, it's quite the circus, but we get it done. But with the other three options, it definitely costs down considerably, brings the cost down considerably. On one of the next slides, you'll see that. There is a savings as far as the printing of the ballots, the election workers, things of that nature. It is easier to tabulate at the close of polls, and the close of polls could also be live streamed to the public, so everyone can see it, as it's happening. The con with that, yes, it's a little inconvenient sometimes based on where the voting locations would be. It may require a voter to drive a little further within the district, but the voting locations would still remain within our district. Here is just the outline of the overall cost per election. So at the current moment, it runs about approximately $75,000 to run a single election. That is just the May election, not a revote or anything of that nature. I showed the one polling place, two polling, or three polling place options and what the cost savings would be. We would, again, save on the election worker costs, the machinery costs, the software for the tablets that you sign in on. So there's a definite savings of either, up to $49,000 to have it as one polling location, $42,000 or $37,000 based on, as we add polling locations. We did a quick little inquiry to some of our surrounding districts. Like I mentioned earlier, it's definitely the sentiment throughout Suffolk County and also Nassau to try to minimize using elementary schools and schools in general as voting locations. So this is just some of our neighboring districts, the number of polling locations they have and where the voting is held. Yes, some of the bigger districts are cutting them down, but you can even see as we look at the list, we by far have double the highest person on there. So I did, speak firsthand with Longwood, Smithtown, Middle Country, and it definitely was the sentiment that it's easier, and parents did appreciate the safety factor in having the one location. Just some points to consider. I know some people were hesitant about cutting it down, making it slightly inconvenient for people to vote. Just like the general election and primary elections, voters can utilize the early voting option. It's approximately 2 weeks before the vote. They can come to my office and cast your ballot. So even if you are going to be in town on vote day, but you didn't want to have to travel, you certainly can come to my office and vote early. There is a voting option and this is for any year, no matter how many locations we have. If you qualify for a sick or disabled ballot, that is through Suffolk County, where you can complete your application and submit that. So any general, primary, any location for the government and the school district, you will be automatically mailed a ballot. So that is always an option for you. Again, having less polling locations, it's definitely easier for our staff to monitor when an issue comes about with either the voting machine, or if a voter, is newly registered, they might not appear in the register. So it is easier for us to access and deal with those issues as they arise. Again, the safety is a huge concern. We would have to, we could easily remove them from the elementary schools, from the multi-purpose rooms, have it in one secure location with our security on staff. And that's really about it. Are there any questions, just to reiterate?
Meredith?
The one time that we did have it here, can you tell me what our voter turnout was?
I believe it was 4,800 voters.
So it was higher than the average when we had it in one location.
It was a sentiment that's shared. It's definitely what is on the ballot that's going to drive the voters out. So if it's, a highly contested election for either a board position, or if there is a bond or a Prop 2 or something that might, bring the voters out, that's definitely what drives it.
Matthew?
In 2024, was the traffic crazy here?
It was not.
Yeah.
Shockingly, it
I
was
don't remember
not.
it being.
I know everyone was very concerned about it. Our security staff was outside, and we had reserved parking spaces, both handicapped and regular. We had our staff that's normally here during the day park either on the side or around the back, and we also utilized Gate Lot for parking. And we had a shuttle for our employees that day. So the parking was wide open, and we had voting in this room here and across the hall in room A. So with the number of employees that were here working the vote, able to help, and the turnaround was super fast, and everyone commented like, oh, I thought I'd be here forever, and it was a quick turnaround. So it kept the, car flow really great.
Any other questions, Jess?
If we do reduce the locations, I'd just ask if like a tip sheet or a how-to for that mail-in ballot could be posted, just so everyone's aware.
Yeah, absolutely.
For people to navigate.
When it comes to our budget season, we definitely put some informational links on our website. It's typically a poll place finder. So if anyone had a question, they can go on, type in their address, and it'll automatically come up. They can check their voting status if they're still registered. A lot of people don't know if they haven't voted in the past 5 years. Suffolk County, not us, but Suffolk County deems them inactive. So that tends to arise. So it's issues like that we can definitely field those questions as they pop up. And we can certainly put something out to our community, just advertising the change.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. So, go ahead. Oh, hold on, Rob.
I just want to know, once we reduce, if we reduce, we want to do this one time, correct?
We don't want to do this and then next year or the year after
Mhm.
start doing it again, right? So
Correct.
we're going to do it once.
Yeah, a common problem that pops up year after year is there's typically a June primary. Unfortunately, the Board of Elections sends out those little mailer reminder cards, typically the first day in May. So right before our vote, and everyone brings that card and says, no, I'm supposed to vote here at Winona, and no, you vote at Cayuga. It's just a confusion that happens yearly. So if we could do this one change and send that out so there's not that confusion going forward, that would be best.
Great. Rob?
Yeah, I don't have a problem reducing the number of polling places. My only concern is if we go down to one, you may end up with an issue where you can create like people become complacent if they have to travel more than they want to travel. You know, I would be okay with the middle schools because they kind of, demographically, scattered throughout the district. It's not too far of a drive for people. You're going to force them to drive, 5, 6, 7 miles to get to their school. If we're going to go to 2 polling places, the benefit to the high school would be is that maybe we can get our high school students that are actually 18
Mhm.
to actually participate and get them voting early. But I'm just concerned about the one location and creating a complacency problem. But that's, either way, they save a lot of money.
Good, Mike.
So this is one of these things that comes up from time to time where you realize you're balancing the interests of multiple things. One is we want to save some money, right? We want to deal with increasing safety by removing the voters out of the voting places out of the elementary schools, right? And on the other hand, you have the interests of our constituents and their accessibility to voting, right? So I'm uncomfortable with the one, although I understand I do want to get out of the elementary schools if we can, and I do want to save some money, but I'm not sure that should be the final factor between 2 or 3. So I think it's only about $7,000. So I agree with Rob. I think the 3 middle schools are, I don't want to say centrally located, but they're dispersed across the district in such a manner as to reduce the amount of travel time. Plus, the high schools are very busy that time of year, especially later at night when the polls are open till 9. So you do have sports going on. You do have that traffic in there. I don't think the high schools are a good idea to use as a polling place, but that's just me. But right now, I agree we should reduce. I'm more inclined to vote for 3.
Yeah, I'll jump in with my comment. So I agree with you on the high schools. I think they're too busy. Challenge with the middle schools is we've got the demography here tonight, right? If we close a middle school, now we're going to be doing this again next year, right? So if we set it at one location here, no matter how many years go by in the future, everybody knows when you vote for Sachem, you've got to come here to district office, right? And again, the safety aspect, there's no students in this particular part of the building. So I'm in favor of the one location. So, Steph?
I know prior to COVID, there was a lot of communication about this because parents wanted it out of the elementary schools for the safety reason. And, we get complicit and we wait around and we're like, it's not going to happen to us. And then today happened. So my opinion was different the last time we discussed this, considering what happened today, because we always seem to forget. So I'm in favor of one just for the safety reason. And obviously it's saving us money, but this conversation was happening prior to our financial woes. So I agree with the one.
Sabrina?
Since our last meeting, I kind of have thought about it a lot because I was dancing between the 3 or the 1. And I think for me, the safety of our students and getting it out of, I just think that they're going into that MP, what is it called? The multipurpose
NPR.
room. And I feel more comfortable with it being out of the elementary schools. And I don't think we're going to have a lower turnout if we move it to one location. I still think we're going to get people who are going to want to vote are going to come out either way, whether they're going 2 minutes down the road or 8 minutes up the road.
Meredith?
I know the November general elections that we don't have control over that. And I know that there's a big push across the country basically to get those out of elementary schools. So
Correct.
for us to be on the same page is great. What goes on? Like, how do you get that changed? Like, I know that they were looking to like put them in firehouses, libraries,
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's something that, has to go through legislation to change it.
Okay.
We have been mentioning that and discussing it a lot of times at our district clerk conferences. It's something that all of the schools would definitely love to do. But we're battling the powers that be on that. Hopefully it will be in the future held more at fire departments, community centers, rec centers, things of that nature, away from the children. Yeah.
And if we made this change and we did, because there's a possibility of a middle school closure. What if we went to 2 middle schools? Because by the time this change goes into play, we'll probably know what we're doing with the schools. If we went down to 2 middle schools, one would be the East Feeder, one would be the North Feeder. So wherever your kids are supposed to go is where you would vote. Would that save us the same amount of money as going to the 2 high schools?
Yes, if we cut down that cost, I had put the 2 high schools there just as an example.
Mhm.
We certainly can utilize 2 middle schools. It doesn't have to be at the high school level. One important thing, from another point of view, is that a lot of times, I think everyone's familiar with when you go to the elementary school to vote, a lot of times there's different events, there's art shows, concerts, things of that nature. The parking is always a nightmare. So
That's true.
the high schools are much larger. There is more parking. I know it's going to be a nightmare, but we are already contending with that in a way, the way our current scenario. So that's just something to think about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you guys, I hear everything you're saying about multiple locations, but the reason why we're doing this is safety. So the
That's
safety
it.
of our elementary kids is just as important as our middle kids, is just as important as our high school kids. So I think 1 location, in my opinion, is the best way to go because it's for safety
Yeah,
purposes.
agreed. Okay. Ed, quick question if to move forward on something like this, we need a resolution, right? So
Yeah.
we've got to come to some sort of consensus, let's say tonight, because we've got to do this fairly quickly to get a resolution so Allison can plan, right?
Yeah, the district has no policy in regards to election districts or polling sites, so it would just require a simple resolution.
Okay. So how do we want to move forward on this? Do we want to take a leaning and then get a resolution on the next meeting or? Okay. All right, let's, Sabrina, I'll start with you.
I'm for the one
One.
polling location.
Okay. Jess,
I'm for the 1 polling
One.
location.
Matthew,
I'm for 1 location.
Also
Steph?
one.
one. Rob?
No, you know my opinion on it, but I'll support the majority of the board.
So we put you down for one.
Yeah, I'll support the majority of the board. Yeah, I prefer it to be in multiple locations,
Okay.
but
Dennis, one. Meredith,
1.
one. Michael?
Should I say it? I would rather have 3.
Okay, so Michael's 3. And then Rob, since I'm a 1, so that's the majority, so I'm going to put you down for a 1.
yeah, I'll support,
Okay.
I'll support the board.
Got it, okay. So I think next meeting, we'll get that a resolution and get that in place. Perfect. Allison, thank you very much. This was a great find for us. And
Thank you.
I think the safety of our kids first and foremost, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Patty?
you, Allison. Next, I'd like to invite Ross Haber up to do the demographers report for us.
Now I'm on, right? Okay, good. Okay. Good evening. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight is give an overview of the project that we're working on with the district. I think it's really important to understand that the current stage we're at is data collection and data analysis. We've absolutely drawn no conclusions, so there's nothing that's going to come out of this meeting saying this is going to happen or that's going to happen. I'd rather just show you what we're doing, what stage we're at, what needs to be done, and talk about the timeline for completion. So the project is it up there yet? No? Okay. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
And while we're doing that, just to set the stage, I think, just to set the stage, right? So we've contracted with you to do a demographic study of our district to give us data and feedback into moving forward with possible facilities use, right? Whether that's a school
Yeah.
closing or not,
This-
right?
this
So
is-
that's
this is-
the data, that's the
Yeah.
project that you're undertaking for us.
Yeah, this is a comprehensive study. It's
Yes.
taking a look at enrollment projections, demographics of the community, capacities of the schools, and the existing attendance zones.
Great.
To see what we come
What
up
options
with.
we
Yeah.
have, right?
And I think it's, so what we're calling the project is an update on a project related to enrollment projections and school boundary planning, and looking at all the things that comprise that. So I guess I control this. Does this move it? No. Can someone control it from? Okay. All right, here we go. So just here's the project scope and review. Okay, what we're doing is providing an updated enrollment projection and a demographic study to show what's going to exist in this district over the next 5 and 10 years. I think it's no secret that the enrollment in Sachem has declined significantly over the last 20 years. I remember probably in the early 2000s, I came out here, I met with the superintendent, and I think at that time, you were either the biggest or the second biggest suburban school district in the state of New York. And ironically, even with the decline, you're still that way. So the numbers, so your size relative to everybody else is the same. It's just a lot smaller. So then what we're going to do is going to incorporate the findings of the projections into the existing school facilities. And I'll show you tables as we go along of how we're going to do that. And then from that data, determine if it's feasible for the Sachem Central School District to close one or more schools based on our findings. So again, there have been no findings made, no conclusions made. We're early in the stage of doing that, but we have the data to do that. And I want to comment that the data that we received from this district was excellent. It's really kind of put this project probably a month ahead of where it normally might be. Just for example, and I'll talk a little bit about geocoding, matching kids to the map. We had a 99% match rate, meaning that your data entry was good and the address points were good. So that all was very helpful in moving this thing forward. Anyway, so we will provide a 10-year projection for the entire district and for each individual school building. We'll do an analysis of cohort migration over the schools, incoming students, outgoing students, taking a look at how that works. And we'll talk a little bit about the projections in a minute. It's going to include movement within the district, but also movement based on new homes, home sales, and those different kinds of things. And then we'll take a look, after we get all that done, we'll take a look at if alterations to the school zones need to be made to balance enrollments in the school. Okay, so what will the study include? Well, it's going to utilize a combination of organic changes in enrollment with external factors that influence student counts. For example, the way we measure kindergarten is by using live births attributed to the school district. New York State is different in a lot of other states in the country in terms of how they calculate births. They don't do it by town, they do it by school district. So every town and village that's in this district is incorporated into those live births. It's not looking at one community or the other. So live births project kindergarten by looking at births 5 years prior to kids coming to kindergarten and doing an average of those changes. So for example, children born in 2015 became kindergarten students in 2020. We take that over a 6-year period and we say, okay, so on average, this is going to be birth to kindergarten. So that's how kindergartens are projected. As far as grade levels are concerned, we take a 6-year history of movement of children. So for example, if there are 100 kids in kindergarten in 2020, and they become 110 kids, same group, when they move to grade 1, they're 110, that's a 10% increase. So we average that increase or decline for every grade level, and that gives us a multiplier for projections out. So if the average growth in kindergarten to first grade, let's say, is 5%, that carries through over the 10-year projection. And then to that, we add things like new housing, projected new housing under construction, and we base that on type of unit. Is it a co-op? Is it a condo? Is it an apartment? Is it single family? Is it multi-family? And each one of those gives us a different projection number. So if we take a look at a unit with a building with 100 units in it, and we break that down, we find they've got 50 one-bedroom apartments, 25 two-bedroom, 25 three-bedroom. Each one of those gets a different value. And it's not necessarily that 100 units will present 100 kids. Okay, we take a look at how these units in this community and in similar communities project kids. So a two-bedroom apartment in a a similar district like this produces, let's say, 1.3 kids. And so those are the multipliers we use. So we add those to the projections. So that gives us a very good view of what the district's going to look like over time. Then once we get these projections done, what we'll do is we'll take those projections and put them into each of the school buildings. So for example, if we look at attendance zone, and then that attendance zone, there are 150 kids, we spread those kids over the facility. In other words, how many instructional spaces, how many classrooms, what is a target class size, all of those things factor into what we're doing. We also make sure in doing this that there's balance in the schools, not just balance in terms of enrollment, but in terms of equity. Okay, every school has an art room. Every school has a music room. Every school has a resource room. So what a child gets in school 1 will be the same thing as a child gets in school 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's important. So it's class size distribution, staying within the district guidelines or the district targets. Okay, equity of program, space to be made available in each building, so every student has an equal opportunity as they go through the system. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so here is. Okay, here is. I know it's strange to see this. Everybody here has a form. Anyway, this is an enrollment projection table. This is a district-wide projection. And this is a real projection. This is what we've actually done to date. The only thing I need to advise here is that the 225, 226 enrollment is soft, meaning that it's not the official enrollment yet of the district. This is based, I think, early August or late July. So we know there have been entrances and departures from that point. So when we get that official number, we'll fill it in from there. I would assume that over the next few weeks, the enrollment will stabilize. And so we'll use the most stabilized numbers. And hopefully at the end, we can get a lot of this done and maybe just solidify it on the September 30th enrollment on the BEDS report. Okay. But anyway, having seen this, so the top table, that's the actual enrollment details. You go through it. It has the births, it has the grade levels, it has the history. Okay, and then the bottom piece is the average growth between or the multipliers between grades. So the bottom sheet is the multiplier for the top sheet. Typically it's done by column, but it would be just too wide, so we separate them out. So if you're looking at what's looking like an average growth here between first and second grade is just about 1.5%, or I'm sorry, 0.5%. Okay, so those numbers that show that. So anyway, and these projections here, by the way, are not adjusted for homes yet, for residential units yet. Those will be added in as soon as we gather all that data, and we're in the process of gathering that now. You can see that between 2019 and 2019-20 and 24-25, last year's enrollment, there was a drop of about 690 students, which is a fairly substantial drop. And then we're looking out to the 29-30 school year of a drop of another 498 students. Now, this probably will be mitigated by housing. So those numbers may change a little bit, and we'll take a look at housing sales in the community, and that's what will determine how those numbers are. But right now, the organic projection, the projection based on live births, and the projections based on history are showing a further decline. And I didn't go 10 years out on this yet. I will in the final report. After 5 years, it's kind of maybe, but through the 5 years, we'll have that as soon as we get all the numbers in. Okay, now the next, so we do that projection for the district, and we do that projection for each school. And this is then we take that and we attach this to a room utilization analysis. So if you look at the sheet, the top of it talks about, the school name would be in there, the grade range of K to 6, the total students that exist in that school building now, okay, the target class size, what 20, 21, 22, 23, and then we go to the next table, and that table, we apply that to each of the years, each of the progressing years. So we would put in, what are we projecting for 25, 26 in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, et cetera. And we'll do this out for 5 years and then do estimates out for 10 years. But what this is going to show you is what will your schools, if nothing changes, or if we do no change at all, we leave all 10 schools the way they are, we don't change attendance zones, this is what your district will look like in 10 years. Then from that, we assess how does that stack up against building capacity, classroom space, which schools are showing the least growth or showing the most decline. What does that mean? Is a school no longer, for example, can a school no longer support more than one section on a grade? Okay, you don't want to see that. There's one school, have grade sizes so small that they don't work out over a 5-year period, and that that works in our recommendation of what your schools look like. The decisions of what you do are yours. We provide the data. No, nothing more than that. We defend the data. We take the challenges on the data. But in the end, when there's total confidence that this board has, this community has, in what we're projecting, then the board takes the appropriate actions on that. So we've gone from district-wide projection, cohort, meaning based on history and birth, projection, including new housing developments, projections for each individual school in the district over that period of time. And then we come up with that. This is what you will look like if nothing changes. Okay. Now, before we get to that, so just give you an overview of what we've done so far. So far, we've gotten all the student data. By the way, we don't track names in that data. Everything's done by student number. The only time names will ever come to the district is when, okay, this is what the school is going to be, and you've got to notify parents and kids and let the kids know. But up until that point, it's just student numbers. So we only have student numbers and addresses, no names. And I think that was part of our agreement with you. And as a parent and a grandparent, I totally support that. Okay, protecting identity as much as you can. Okay, we've taken the current existing attendance zones, we've placed them on a map of the district, so we know what the zones for each school looks like. I've done this. I've been in all 10 of your elementary schools, and just as an observation, your schools are not new, but they are in really nice condition. Okay, I told it to Bill. Bill took me around on tour, I noticed little circles with the dates in there and what year they were built. And again, not new, but in very, very nice condition. And I came at a point when they were just getting ready them up. Okay, so I saw the maintenance was quite good. It was impressive. Okay, for a school schools of that age. I told you we did the school projection, the district projections. We've done the school-based projections, and we're in the process of collecting data on new housing developments. We should have that by the end of next week to be able to kind of put that together. Okay, this is a map of the elementary schools in the district. The different colors represent the different attendance zones. And what we've done is we've geocoded the children so we can count the number of children in each attendance zone. We can say who lives in the attendance zone, who may be attending a school outside of the attendance zone for programmatic reasons. How much room do we need to make sure that we can take care of all the general ed kids, special ed kids, gifted and talented, and all those different kinds of things. So we start by looking at the children in the boundaries, and we know that when we do this, and I say, show me all the children in, let's say, Winona, okay? I'll bring them up on the map, and I'll look at only Winona kids, and there may be some Winona kids who are not in the Winona zones. And that's what we want. Why are they not in the zone? Is there a reason for it? Is it a programmatic reason? Again, we don't have to know the child. We have to know what the programs are. So we know where those programs, district-wide programs, can be located. There may be some children that we have to say, why is this particular child attending a school when there are no special needs or anything like that? And I haven't seen very much of that, but I'm just saying those are the kind, we want to account for every child in the district when we do this. So that's the base map that we start with the attendance zones for the schools. And we geocode on that basis. We look for where there's density of population. Where is the population growing the most? Where is it the densest in the district? What does that mean for the school within that attendance zone? And where are we going from that? You don't see the middle schools up on here because we will work to the attendance. We will work to the middle schools when we know what the impact of the elementary schools are. So if we change middle school attendance, elementary attendance zones, what is the impact of the individual middle schools? So we won't know that until we complete the elementary schools.
Just a question. So your recommendation, though, you'll have the,
I'm sorry?
just a question. So you'll have the elementary data, and then in your recommendation, that'll feed into the middle schools as well.
Yeah. We have the K-12 data. So,
Yeah, okay.
So we've mapped every kid in the district, not just elementary schools. Anyway, so on this sheet, we talk about school projections and utilization tables completed by September 15th. We're finished with that. We've done that with the exception of updating the 2025 school year, 25-26 school year data. Building principals are surveyed and contacted by September 15th. We're using something called SurveyMonkey, and we're going to send surveys out to each of the individual principals. What's important about that is that I walk through the buildings. I'm looking at floor plans. I'm looking at drawings of schools. What I need to know from the principals are how they're actually using the schools. So so it gives us a discussion piece with each principal. So if I see a discrepancy, I wouldn't use the word discrepancy. If I have a question about what the floor plan says versus what the principal is using, we can feather that out. One of the one of the advantages of a declining enrollment is that you expand instructional space. You pick up rooms, and sometimes they're very nice to have all those rooms, but they may not be necessary. They may be repurposed into regular classrooms if that is a more efficient construction of the building. Again, really important to state that for those of you who don't know, if you read my resume, I'm a former building principal. So in looking at all of this stuff, education is paramount to me. And I think I said to a couple of building people, they're worried about an art room. I said, don't worry about an art room. I'll never take an art room away or a music room away. I won't want to see art on a cart, especially in this day and age. So I'm cognizant of utilization from an education point of view. I'm also cognizant of rooms that can be repurposed, okay, and without doing any damage. And what we want to do is an end date on this. We would like to have a recommendation to the board no later than November 30th. And we're on target to do that. We would sometime in October, we'll send an intermediate report to you guys, make a presentation to get feedback from the community maybe, and from board and community members. Look at those things, adjust what needs to be adjusted, stand by what doesn't need to be adjusted. And by the 30th, by the end of November, by recommendations by the 30th, and final report to you by the 15th. We think it's important that if there are actions to be taken, they be taken as early as possible. So if people in the community have to make adjustments, they can be done. If busing changes, you've got plenty of time to put out your busing bids or change your bus routes, or whatever it is. So again, we're on track to be where we want to be. We're on track to meet the deadline. We've not come across any particular issues regarding any issues at all, actually, regarding data. We've gotten everything that we need. We've gotten it really well. And so I hate to say this because, it's like, but it's been smooth sailing, and hopefully it'll continue to be that way. And again, cooperation that we've gotten from the districts has been spectacular. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Questions from the board? Steph?
I had one going over this. It's really just a confusion, so I wanted to clarify it. When you say the 498 number, where you say it declines, that's the entire district.
Say again?
There's a 498 number that says decline between 24 and 25 to
That's-
2930. That's the whole entire district,
Yes.
and that's declining. That's the amount of kids that will be less.
Yes.
It's not the enrollment of kindergarten. I for some reason was worried that
No,
would be
it's-
our kindergarten enrollment.
It includes, it's a projection. It's a K-12 projection.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. And again, Could be, again, I don't know what the impact of the 25, 26 enrollment is yet
Right.
because I haven't seen that full number. I don't know what the housing impact is yet because I haven't calculated that out. But based just organically on history, that's the decline.
Mike?
All right, thanks for everything. Can we go back a couple of slides? Because I just want to ask a question about the data, or at least my interpretation of data.
Which,
Back another one more. That one there. Is it fair based on that data to say that it seems, or at least over the last 6 years, that once a kid starts with us, they tend to stay with us, right? Because I'm looking at the ratios, right? The ratios above 1. So on average, they tend to stay steady once we start them.
cohort, this is called a cohort projection.
Can you just speak in the microphone so our, Ross, can you speak in the microphone so our viewers at home can hear?
I guess
Thanks.
I don't have that big voice anymore.
Well, it's the at-home viewers. so,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. This is a cohort projection. This is based solely on live births and current enrollment. It accounts for children coming in and out of the year during the course of the year. So we start with the beds enrollment, and we go beds year to year. But in between, the numbers change based upon children coming in and out of the district, not impacted, not necessarily from new housing, maybe from new housing, but not necessarily. That's strictly based on those numbers on top, 2019, 2020, 2021 to 25, 26 it will be. Those are real numbers. Okay.
No, I
Those are not
think I was,
projected numbers.
Russ, I got getting at the cohort survival ratio.
I'm sorry?
I'm getting at the survival ratio.
Okay.
It seems that when that ratio is above 1, it just tends to mean that we have the same amount of kids that started, they go across.
Yeah.
And so basically, it would be fair to say the number that we start with is typically the number that we end with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
I
good.
remember that number that's 5. The yellow is the
Right.
6-year average.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess my point is that once we start, we tend to have the same amount of kids across the whole thing. So
Uh,
then
Pretty much. Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think that's what you see.
Okay.
Another question: can we go forward now again, Allison? I just have a question about how to interpret
Which one?
this.
Which slide?
Go forward to the last slide, I guess.
This one?
Keep going.
No.
Keep going. Back. Okay. No, back one. I want to go to the one where it talks about recommendations. Timeline.
Which one do you want?
Pretty much the last page.
The last slide.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So
Okay.
you have on there recommendation for any school closure proposed boundaries by November 30th. But wouldn't that have to be predicated on direction that we provide you of what our goal is based on what we find in your data?
Well, I think that my understanding from the proposal and what we discussed, what you want us to do, and I'm always subject to edits and changes. What you want us to do is that you have some concerns about enrollment in the district. You have some concerns about how you're utilizing facilities. Okay. This study is going to give you all of the data you need to make that decision. We're not changing any educational plan in the district. So I think that, my understanding is that you want to know what your building is going to look like over the next 5 or 10 years. How much classroom space, what your class sizes are going to look like. Do you have room for your special needs programs? How are you going to deal with pre-K? Just all those different kinds of things. So the picture that we want to paint is a picture of this is the instructional space available in the school district. Here are the numbers. Now we're going to say what we think. Okay, if we find that if we do this whole thing, you've got a school that has 140 kids projected out for 5 years, that's pretty much going to be a recommendation to take a serious look at that. Or will that school that's only 150 students in 5, that, by the way, I'm only making that up as an example. So I want nobody to leave here and say, we're going to have a school with 150 kids in 5 years. I'm just giving you an example. So, but maybe that balance we take a look at, yes, maybe that school dips down low, but what if a school nearby dips high? We may need that school to remain in the system to balance out the enrollments. Again, I don't know because we're not at that point. And I know, as I said, there are just no conclusions drawn here because we haven't analyzed the data enough.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is I'm very comfortable with up to your statement of you're going to give us a report that's going to project out what our district will look like and how our buildings will be utilized if we did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Right. That's the point that we now then to make as a board need to provide direction on which way do we want to go? We talk about complete redistricting. Do we look at we want to close elementary schools? Are we going to consider middle schools? Right. So that's.
So Mike, did maybe, because I think you're onto what I think I heard, but bullet number 4 says a recommendation for any school closure, right? So are we expecting a recommendation from you?
Yeah.
To say, based on this data, we recommend you can close X schools, not by name, but a
Yeah.
elementary
Yeah.
or a middle school, right? Mike, is that what you were kind of?
I think it's important
No,
to also
I-
understand that public presentations and transparency and communicating on the website, all the things are incredibly important. In that process, we're going to have a number of questions. I may call the superintendent to say, hey, I don't understand this, or I may call one of the building principals to say, I don't understand this. We want to make sure that in this process, not only are we looking at numbers, that we understand a little bit more about the culture of the school district, what the needs are, what are some things that, we may draw a boundary, and one of you guys or somebody in the community say, kids shouldn't cross the street. Okay, I'm just kind of making up this shouldn't be a natural boundary. So we're not going to be deaf to those kinds of, it's not, I'm not going to go back to my office with my colleagues and say, hey, here are the numbers. Now, it can't work like that, because at some point we're going to present to a public that's going to be very concerned, rightfully so, about what this district's going to look like over the next 5 years, and kind of address the questions, get to understand the community a little bit. The tour I took of the building was very helpful to me. Driving around the area is very helpful to me. And just those of you who don't, I'm not a stranger in a strange land. Okay. I do come from New Jersey, but I've only been in New Jersey 12 years. I am a dyed-in-the-heart, lifelong Long Islander. I lived in Port Washington for 33 years prior to moving to New Jersey and other places. So I know the
It's almost Queens though, but
The only thing
we
I-
won't hold it against you.
Sorry?
It's almost Queens, but we won't hold it against you, but yeah. Okay. Anyway,
Please don't.
Yeah, Steph and then Jess.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I was going to say, because one of the other things that I think we discussed, and I'll leave this to our educators, is possibly restructuring who's in the elementary schools, right? We talked about that possibility. So how does that factor in? I don't want recommendations to come out that was something we might not consider it, even consider. So
Steph?
I was under the impression we were hiring him to give us his professional, unbiased opinion, get that, and then listen to us in the community. I wasn't under the impression we were giving him any direction prior to getting a professional outside opinion. So to me, I would value that for the money we're spending to have that information, so that we don't have, we could all lie to ourselves and say we're not going to be emotional. We are, and we're going to
Absolutely.
want to have certain goals that each of us hold.
Yeah.
So I would love to see just the raw data with the recommendations, and then we as a district decide what we do with that data.
Yeah, you understand that I'm going to say this, even though I'm a northerner, I ain't got a dog in this race, okay? And I think that's really, really important to understand, that I'm completely unbiased. I don't want to say, I want the results to be good, but I don't have a target for what the results should be, okay? I'm strictly looking at instructional space, projections, facility analysis, logical attendance zones, if changes are made. And that's it. You guys are the ones that fight it out.
Jess?
I appreciate what Stephanie said, because I know I'm a newer trustee, but I'm having a hard time understanding what the educational model is intended to be, what the plan is. Are the class sizes for target classes supposed to stay as they are now, which we know many elementary parents have been vocal are higher than what is ideal. So what are we basing those targets on? So I know if I'm a trustee failing to see that vision, and he's not going to plan that vision for us, at what point as a cabinet and a board do we look at what's best for the kids, not just kids on an Excel sheet, children with IEPs, children in the classroom, children with 504s. When are we deciding what that looks like in this process?
And yeah,
Well-
good point, Jess. I think we've got to get the data, and it's going to be all sort
Yeah.
of discussions that we
Yeah.
have to have, right? But
I
we need
mean-
the data first in order to drive those conversations.
So
right?
what point would you need that information of what we're hoping our targets are,
Well, I think
class
it's-
sizes?
I think that on an interim report, for example, an interim report that, so one of the things that I look at and that are important to you, so it's class size. So and talking about, what is your targeted class size? And what should be the percentage difference between each school building in terms of class size? Should one school have an average class size of 17, and another average class size of 24? No, we
Well,
don't.
right now, that's the concern of a lot of the community members. It's
And
very
that's-
disproportionate.
And that's something I absolutely target. Do we want to make sure that no schools are a little bit different. They have different personalities, even within a district. I understand that. But within the framework of that, what is the equity between the school buildings? Again, as I said, are programs that are available in one school available in another school? I'm looking at what's offered in each of these school buildings to see, are there any differences? I come back to you on that. Is it something that makes a difference? Yes. This school has this, but doesn't have this, but we have this and they don't have that. It's kind of like taking a look at what the principals, we can't leave the teachers and the principals out of this in terms of their contribution educationally. So I have to look at the things that are, that are set, class size, program equity, those kinds of things.
So when do you get what the class sizes are intended to be? Because I
I'm-
haven't heard what they're intended to be with redistricting. yet.
Well, if you look at one of the very first things,
Yeah, I don't think we talked about changing. We have our target class sizes, and that's probably what we fed to you.
Yeah.
So we have our target class sizes, and
Yeah.
we haven't really had the discussion if we're going to
but
change that. The data may drive that. We just don't know yet, right?
this table will do the math regarding division of class size. So whatever you tell me, and I think you have, I just have my notes with me. Whatever you tell me the target class size is, that's what's going to go in this table, and we'll for each of the school buildings. Again, that's going to come. I would say by the end of September, we should have a pretty good idea of a first draft of an interim report, data report, not a conclusion, but a data report. I would think the first step here is for us to do this and give you this table based on existing attendance zones. And then we move forward from there. Make sense?
Meredith?
So you said that everything you do is about K through 12. We have a huge population of pre-K, and they're in some of our elementaries, even one of our middle schools. So you're going to take all that into account. Are you going to give us any data for, thoughts like, if you close this building, then you have no more pre-K. If you don't close this building, you can put pre-K XYZ.
Oh, that's a natural derivative of the project. At the end, we could say, there's another table. I didn't want to show all the tables here because it's just a lot of tables. But what we do is that we'll take a listing of all of your schools, of all the elementary schools. It'll be a consolidated table. And that table will list the number of rooms available in that building and the number of net rooms left after we do all this stuff. So you'll see, school A has 0 net, school B has 9 net, meaning classrooms that are not assigned based upon what we know. Okay, so we may come back and say there were 9 building classrooms here, but you may say, but these are used for something else. Then we got to make a decision. Do we want to use those for something else? For example, if you're using 3 and I'm not saying this exists because I haven't done it yet, so it's important to understand that I'm giving you examples, okay? So if you've got a school that's assigned 3 SGI, full-size classrooms for SGI, small group instruction, but we're only running 4 kids a period. Okay, that's probably 2 more rooms than you need. And if you're running 4 kids a period, that might even be a room that could be subdivided for SGI. So those are the kinds of things that come out of a study like this. And we try to make it as comprehensive as possible and make your decisions as difficult as it can possibly be. No.
And completely hypothetically speaking, you would also put in there whether you recommend bringing 6th grade back down to elementary if that were something we needed to look at.
I'm not sure that that's in the scope of the study. It's a question you just asked, that you go to a K5, 6, 8. Is that where you?
So I think
We are
that-
K 5,
yeah,
6,
but that's
8.
going to be for us to decide based on the data that he provides. Then we can determine, do we have the rooms to do that, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob, you had a question?
Yeah,
This is my second redistricting that I think I'm the only one on board that we closed 3 schools. The concern we have is that you're looking at K through 6 buildings right now, K through 5 buildings right now. This board is looking at, well, where can we get the biggest savings with impacting the least number of students? So the discussion has come up in the past and even in the last reconfiguration as to moving 6th graders back to elementary school. Now, if you're going to give us raw data of our buildings K through 5 right now, and this board decides that we want to move 6th graders back, it's going to change all your numbers drastically. And so, not walking through the middle schools and looking at utilization of space in the middle schools, it's not going to help us determine whether or not that's even a feasible option. So we're looking at, we know the cost savings of closing an elementary school versus closing a middle school. And next year, we're looking at a $15 million shortfall in our budget. So, we're looking to try to generate the greatest savings in the district without impacting, a huge number of students. Years ago, when I went to the school, years ago, we were K through 6 school.
Well, just to kind of address that, as a kind of a natural outgrowth, as I said in the beginning, we're doing the elementary schools first, see what they look like, okay? They will definitely have an impact on the middle school. So when we take a look at what the population changes on the middle school and what that facility looks like based upon those changes, you may be able to make a decision about that.
Earlier, you had mentioned that by November 30th, you're going to come back with a recommendation.
I believe so.
So
I believe so. We can. We've committed to doing it.
So how do you come back with a recommendation if you're not looking at the middle school?
Well, no, I said we are. Okay.
you are looking at it.
I said we are. Well, as soon as we finish the elementary schools, which we're doing, okay, we'll then take a look at the boundaries. So the boundaries of the middle school, take the counts in the middle schools, look what the numbers look like, okay, and then see what needs to be done there. If you've got a middle school that's terribly underpopulated, and you've got, I don't know yet because I haven't really done the calculation, and a middle school that's terribly overpopulated, we may be able to do some balances. So I don't know, okay? But the question is, middle school is in the study.
Okay. The other thing you mentioned is that you're going to look at actual numbers from residents that are opening up. When the Ronkonkoma hub was planned and proposed, individuals from the town of Brookhaven and the builders said that we were looking at about 30 additional kids. And at the time when it was proposed, they were all going to be 1-bedroom apartments for working professionals. Then they with a handful of 2-bedroom, and now they've gone from 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom. So that number of 30 kids or 34 kids, whatever it was back then, I remember scratching my head saying, "Wait, you're building how many units? It's only 34 kids." How do you gather that data, and how does that work into report? Is that you get actual numbers of kids that will be attending from that complex?
There are a number of studies that we rely on, okay, that there's one called Econsult, there's another one, the Rutgers study of 2018, that does kind of a broad-based analysis of what different kinds of housing units yield. Now, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I know issues there. I know there are issues there. We take experiential stuff. Like I know in a community like this, what the average number of kids from a 4-bedroom house is, okay? So a 4-bedroom house doesn't mean 4 kids. Like 100, and I said, it's one of those things that's kind of difficult for people to understand, but a 200-unit apartment house doesn't yield 200 kids. It doesn't yield 400. It yields somewhat less than that based upon a number of parameters. I explained that in the course of the project. I'll show you how that's done. One of the things that is kind of nice is that when we look at an apartment house in a district, we calculate by address. Okay, we look at an apartment house and we say how many students, again, not by name, okay, how many students come from this apartment house. We know there are 100 units. We know there are 52-bedroom apartments. And on average, how many kids are that being yielded? And that's kind of how we kind of, get it. We don't get it out. It's very easy to overestimate. Okay.
Do we have the actual numbers of registrants from Ronkonkoma Hub?
We had them from last year. I can get the updated ones for this year from Susan.
I'm assuming the number's higher than.
They're higher, but not as high as we anticipated. They are higher than the 30, though, yes.
Okay, so I guess
And your data set has apartment units. Okay. In other words, it's like every apartment every child that comes from an apartment or a garden apartment, there's a unit attached to that. So we know that number.
Jess?
Last meeting, you had said the projections have a 1 to 2 margin of error based on the algorithms you use. Is that same for the new housing complexes and like estimating?
I'm sorry.
Last meeting, you had said that the algorithms you used to project enrollment was 1 to 2% margin of error, which I thought was pretty impressive. Is that true for new housing complexes and how you're auditing that and monitoring that as well?
Yeah, the only caution I would say there, okay, is that over the last 2 years, interest rates have gone up incredibly, and they're having some kind of impact on purchasing of new homes. Little different on apartment houses, okay? But my error, the error calculator gave you, number error over years, that includes everything. It's a projected number, and that's okay. Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Okay.
Well, I thank you very much for your
Thank you very
kind
much.
attention.
Appreciate it. I know you made a long trip to get here, so we greatly appreciate it. So,
No problem. Well,
Thank you,
yeah,
Rob.
But who cares? Okay, take care, everybody.
thank you.
Okay, and we'll be in touch. We'll keep you updated on what we're doing, and we'll go from there. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Right.
Mrs. Trombetta, any other items in the superintendent's report?
No, other than yesterday, we were very fortunate enough to have our new teacher orientation, and it was a wonderful afternoon. We got a chance to welcome a lot of new staff members. Some of them are here tonight that we'll be congratulating shortly, but it was nice to see all the smiling faces, very eager and excited to start their career here with us at Sachem.
Great. Dennis and I had an opportunity to go and say hello. So welcome to everybody, and looking forward to a good year. And as I said yesterday, a great career at Sachem. So thank you. Okay. Great. Okay, let's student board report. Welcome, guys. We missed your last meeting.
Yes.
Daniel, let's start with you. Anything to update and looking forward to in about a week or so? You guys are starting, right?
Yeah, so we're starting school in about a week. We're all very excited. We had today and yesterday, we had our freshman orientation, which I thought went well. We had about 20 volunteers of juniors and seniors for both days that were able to come and help out, which was good. As well, we're also preparing for homecoming, which is nice. So we're looking to pick a theme and try to break every record of attendance numbers, try to get as much people there for the dance and for the game as possible. And we're just really excited for the new year.
Thank you. Looking forward to the updates.
I think the date, I'm not sure. I know it's like the 4th week of football season. I'm not sure.
Okay, great. Samia, you're up.
Okay, so sports have just started and everyone's very excited. I'm doing gymnastics this year for the first year in school. It's a great experience. I'm very happy. And it's actually very cool because we have multiple foreign exchange students with us and they're all trying sports.
Oh.
So it's been very cool to see them all integrating into the different sports. And we're very excited for homecoming. Our homecoming is the weekend before Halloween, which we're talking about football themes right now. My cabinet is very excited. It's all girls, so we're very much having a great time with that. But we're very excited for the school year.
Great.
North homecoming is October 11th, and East homecoming is October 25th.
Board members, any questions for our students? Okay. Thank you, guys. Looking forward to the updates throughout the year. Okay. Great. Leads us to the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Stephanie, second by Mike. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion opposed? Motion carried. Visitors. Allison is one visitor. Okay. Suzanne Eicher?
All right. So I'm a broken record. I've come up here and spoken a lot about class sizes and targets. So as we're doing this demographer study, I would say we should really be looking at that target class size. I know we have it. We increased it 2 years ago. The community hasn't really been upset about that increase because we haven't really reached that target in most of our elementary classes. This year, we are coming very close to that target or at target, and in some schools over target in a lot of our classrooms, and parents are getting upset. You know, I'm the PTA president of one of those schools. We hear all the complaints. We hear the complaints from the other schools. people are getting nervous. And as we go to redistrict, we're going to want to optimize that target size because that's the whole purpose, to save money. So to get the best use of that data, it would look that we would need to make a decision about class sizes sooner than later so that the data, the unbiased data that comes back from him would be reflective of what we really want to do. So that was just my whole thing, is that can we have a discussion about class sizes and also disclose what the class sizes are for each grade, because we keep saying +2 target sizes, but we never actually say that number out loud in these meetings. So we never say 4th grade is 27, 3rd grade, and I'm not even sure if my numbers are correct. So just if the community can be really transparent about what those numbers are so that everyone knows what we're making decisions on. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that's a great point. So I think during the process, our goal is to be as transparent as possible. So we should be publishing what our current targets are, right? In every conversation. So, okay. Okay. Leads us to item 3, business items, consent agenda A through C. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Matthew. Questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Section 4, personnel teachers, consent agenda A through Q. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Matthew, second by Sabrina. Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Patty? Stacy?
Thank you. I'm excited to share, as Ms. Trombetta said, we have a few of our new hired teachers and TAs here tonight. So if you can just stand and go around and introduce yourselves to the board, that would be great. We're excited to have you, and welcome to the Sachem family.
Can you guys please come up for a picture? All I know is it means I'm getting very old because my students are now working for us.
Okay. Okay, takes us to item 5, personnel, consent agenda A through K. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Meredith. Questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We're going back to you. Go ahead, Saves.
Thanks again. I just wanted to mention we have a retirement tonight. Christina Thomason, she's been our payroll benefits office for many, many years. She's our opt-out
insurance nice ship guru. So we just want to wish her a lot of luck in retirement.
Item 6, Personnel Administrators. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Rob, second by Sabrina. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 7, Contracts, Consent Agenda A through W. Motion, please. Mike, by motion. Second by Rob. Questions or comments?
Comment.
Good. Dennis?
I'm still against the extracurricular that we talk about cutting sports all the time, and I know as far as paying us an extra person to come do videotaping while we already have videotaping being done. We pay a lot of money for Huddle. Huddle's great, and not that I don't want to see these other guys working and getting in, but I think our booster clubs could take care of that.
To give an update on that, we did cut down our taping for each sport by half, and moving forward, all coaches know that next year we will not be having any of the additional videotaping.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? One opposition? Motion carried. Section 8, Donations, Consent Agenda A and B. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Stephanie, second by Sabrina. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Can we mention that it's the Sachem Educational Foundation?
Oh,
Isn't that
yes.
their first donation
Yep.
to us?
That is, and
It is.
next week, Chris Vaccaro will be here to present those grants to those
Yay.
teachers.
Great. Okay. Section 9, Action Items A and B. We're voting on this tonight, right? Yes. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Rob, second by Mike. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 10, Budget Transfers. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Stephanie, second by Sabrina. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 11, Policies. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Rob. All in favor?
Just quick, because the second
Yeah.
reading of the policies.
Yeah, second reading of the policies. So we did the first reading last meeting. This is the second reading of the 4 policies here. Are there any questions on that, or? Jess?
I don't know if there's any way to elaborate any of the changes to 7,800 since that was of strong public interest in the past. Just so everyone knows.
So we can, to go through the whole policy, we took 7,800, and somebody please chime in. Mike, you can, nope. It's
posted
actually on the website with the
changes.
changes, yeah.
Perfect.
So again, the goal with 7,800 was to be more transparent, right? So we won't have a typical committee, because that was very restrictive in our opinion. So we've opened it up, as you saw tonight with the demographer, and the goal is to continue to have that level of transparency with the community, okay?
And the change, the biggest change is public hearings. There'll be multiple public hearings where people from the community will be able to come out and voice their concerns in there.
And do Q&A where they're not.
Q&A
yeah,
as
so
well,
it's,
yes.
I think it's really positive changes, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think it also alleviates some of the angst amongst the community members, and which I think our desire is not to have them, I don't want to say pitted against each other, but at opposed interests, So I think that's proved out to be detrimental.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jess. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 12, Committee on Special Education, Consent Agenda A and B. Motion by Matthew, second by Stephanie. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Takes us to monthly reports. I don't know if we have any, Mike. Does policy committee meet?
Well, they did. This,
Right,
the
that's-
policies you just adopted were
That was from that, yep.
the manifestation of that meeting, yeah. So.
Okay. And I know tonight we're going to go through all the applicants and start assigning people to the committees they requested, right? So we'll do that, and then Allison will get notice out to the community what committee they're on, and then from
Yeah.
there we'll kick them off.
Everyone who did apply can expect to hear within the next week if their application was accepted to what committee, and then we just ask that they respond with accepting the position or not, and if not, we can move on to someone else.
Perfect, thanks. Okay. Closing comment or any other comments? No? Okay. Old business. Any old business on the agenda for tonight? I don't think so, right? Yep. Okay, which then takes us to board discussion items, section 16. Our participation in NISBA and the Nassau-Suffolk Board Association membership. So if the board recalls, we put that on pause about a year ago. We came up with a policy. We would have to have a discussion to determine going back into these, and that's what this is for. So any comments or questions? Who'd like to kick it off? Steph?
It's also going to be part of future items for discussion, but I think us not being part of the resolution decisions is a huge loss for Sachem because we're so big. And there's a lot of things that I will save for future discussion items that I think we need to be a part of to be able to steer in the appropriate direction of the future of education. So that, and also trainings. I think their trainings are invaluable. So that's my 2 cents.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, what is the budget line item for that? Those memberships?
A combined, I believe it's around 19,000.
19,000. Well, I'm opposed to spending the 19,000. And only because I know the trainings, you don't have to be a member to take the trainings. You just pay a premium if you take them. But you're not cut off from taking them. I think the 19,000 would best be served by, splitting it amongst some of the schools for clubs and other activities. So,
Just a comment. Go ahead, Meredith. No, go ahead. I'll save mine.
So out of that 19,000, do we know, obviously we have 2 new board members, so they're mandated to go through some type of training. What is the delta between what it would cost us if we were members and it would cost us if we weren't?
So the 2 new board members, there is, with many of the trainings that NISBA offers, a discount for NISBA members. So it's about $400 versus $600 per trustee taking that training.
Okay, so we would be out an additional 400 to save 19,000, but then there are other factors like, not being a member, with what Stephanie's saying with the resolutions and things like that. If any member decided that they wanted to go to something, are they then allowed to go? They just pay a little bit more.
Correct. Typically with trainings throughout the year that they offer, that cost savings by being a member is definitely greater. It's about half the price if we are a member. So for one, like the district clerk training, I did not go to last year, but if I were to go, it would cost about $1,000 versus like a $495 situation.
Have you ever seen us, in all your years doing this, have you ever seen us do anything that was worth $19,000? I know that's a hard one, but I mean, like pressure, like they're going to cost their training is going to cost an extra $400, and then your training cost what, an extra $1,000?
The trainings are definitely very worthwhile. A lot of what NISBA offers, I benefit from. The policy updates that come out, they basically tell us, when something is a mandatory update. It gives me a heads up to let our policy committee know, to be in touch with our attorneys to say, hey, we need to get on this. We're not compliant at the moment. We need to make sure we're compliant. There's a lot of valuable tools that I use, but that's really a decision.
And Alice, let me just jump in, right? It's not that you use it, because you're using it to run the district, the Board of Ed district, right? So that's really what it comes down to. It's not for you. It's for you to run the place. And we always talk about cutting, but we still have to run this place, right?
Correct.
And is there an option? Is there an opportunity, right? This is 2, NISBA and then Nassau-Suffolk. Can we split that? Do we have to join both, right?
You don't. They're
So
entirely
maybe NISBA is more
separate.
valuable to us versus joining Nassau-Suffolk, and maybe that's an opportunity to have the discussion, right?
So Nassau-Suffolk School Boards is about $4,600. Then the NISBA membership is around $13,000, and then the policy updates is a separate, almost like module for about $1,000.
Okay. But we can't get the policy updates unless we join.
I believe that you can, but they typically
It costs
have
more.
more discussions. They give
Right.
us drafts of it.
Right.
It's a little bit more in depth if you're a
Yeah,
member.
and don't get me wrong, I get we're cutting, right? But we're also raising a lot of money with the dance, renting out our facilities, more to follow there. Like I've said before, we still have to run this place, right? We can't, so there's a certain amount of dollars that have to go into running this place, right? So, Steph?
I know that there's also some legal advice that we can get through these organizations that wouldn't tie up our school district attorney because it's a more generalized question, especially for new members. So I found that valuable, especially in my first year. I have to advocate for professional development, and I know a lot of us don't utilize that. But I brought programs back to the former superintendent because I saw something at a convention, and we implemented these things. So I understand the concern with the cost, absolutely, but I see a bigger value in this for all of us if we utilize it. I mean, we'd have to give a promise to go. We missed out the closest convention last year because we weren't a member. Those conventions are invaluable. You get 3 days of just school district stuff, especially for most of us. Well, let me correct myself. Some of us are not educators on this board. So to get that training is invaluable.
Just to piggyback on something that Stephanie had said also, not to disregard our partnership with Ingerman and having their legal, guidance throughout the school year. They work a lot with NYSBA as well. They're at the conventions, they're at our trainings. Whenever there's a district clerk conference that's offered, they are there. And I sit, side by side with them and bounce ideas off or, cry on their shoulder when they tell me a horrible change is coming. So they work along with NYSBA.
Sabrina? And then Meredith?
The concern I had is I agree with you, Stephanie. Professional development is extremely important, but we're going to pay that fee. But then we still have to pay to go to all of those. Like some of the ones I went to were anywhere for $150 to $250 being a member. So then it's not $19,000. It's $19,000 plus any professional development 9 board members want to go to. So if we all go to 2, how much money but I do think with Allison, I think it's beneficial for her job for us to be able to be a part of it. But I just think the price tag is huge. Like I would almost like to see, like Allison, like what are the things that trainings you need or would want the most? What does that come to? Because if that comes to $10,000, then yeah, we should join for $12,000. But if not, that's what I would like to see before we sign on. Same thing with Nassau Suffolk. I've gone to some great ones, but we're paying a fee, and then we're paying a fee for and a lot of board members haven't gone to them because we don't want to cost the district $200, $300, $400 a pop every time we go to them. So I almost steer away from the professional development because it's that extra cost on top of our already enrollment. So that's the only issue I have is that it's not just the fee, the $19,000. It's then we have to pay for every PD over that.
Meredith and then Matt.
That's kind of like what I was saying. Like, do we utilize $19,000 worth? Or if we don't go back to membership and Stephanie wants to go to convention and the 2 new board members have to get their training and Allison needs a few things, are we ever going to utilize that full $19,000? Because, it does become 19 plus. So if we're using $10,000 worth of stuff by not being members, we're actually saving $9,000, which is, 2 cheer teams.
Matt?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, for what Allison uses and then the 2 new board members, what would it come out to?
I can definitely put together some numbers as more definitive. We didn't do any last year just because we took a break from being a member. So we withheld from going to a lot of the conferences, but I can put together all of them that we typically attend and get some cost information to you.
That'd be great. And then I think the board can make a decision from there, right, Steph? Yep.
Just a quick question. There's 124 school districts in Long Island, right?
Mhm.
How many are not members?
To be honest, very few.
Very few. So we're one of a small handful.
Yeah.
And so when you look at in NYSBA and you look at the advocacy that they do for us, I mean, we don't realize it, but they deal with state issues and they deal with national and federal issues that actually advocates for more local control and for things like that. You're looking at $19,000, but there's a cost associated with them going to, to Washington and going to the state capitol to advocate for unfunded mandates and advocate for, child safety and some of these regulations and mandates that are passed down, they've helped us in the years, not directly, but directly. They've helped all the school districts. So that's the other thing that you have to look at the value of NISBA and that's what Suffolk School Association. I know things are tight, but there is definitely advantages to being part of that. And the fact that we're not part of it, it's known. I mean, board members out there know, and some of the administrators that are associated with the organizations know that we're not members of it. And sometimes they frown upon that. But it's my opinion. It does have value and it does have worth.
Steph, and then Sabrina.
Is there a way we could put a pin in this, have them give us a presentation of what value they can give us for that 19 grand? Because we're making a decision because we have to cut things. Nobody's questioning that. With that said, I see more value in it than, people who didn't utilize it. So I would rather give an informed decision, even with the community, to see a presentation of what we're losing by not joining. Do you get what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sabrina?
I'd be amenable to just the state, the NISBA, not Nassau Suffolk, for this year because it is budgeted. You did budget for it.
Yep.
I think then, this is my opinion, then for next year, we really need to look at what has Allison, what trainings are beneficial to her, what we as board members have attended, and kind of look at the costs in terms then for budgeting for the following year.
Yep.
I don't want Allison to miss out on important things and then we fall short as a board because we're not up to date with pertinent information, but it is a lot of money.
Yeah, no, great point, Sabrina, because we did budget for this during budget season. So the money's there, but we also put the policy in place to have this discussion, right? So Steph.
My last comment on it. I feel like this whole conversation then discourages anybody from going. You know what I mean? Because I didn't go last year because I didn't want to spend the money because I didn't want a struggle school district to have to pay for my way, just like, Sabrina had said. But now this conversation prevents people from going forward. And, it's an asset. It really is an asset for a school district. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because none of us are going to go. If we decide not to join, none of us are going because we're going to feel guilty about spending the money to go.
I'm in favor of joining because Rob made a great point, right? Which is the advocacy that they do on our behalf, right? And if we're not paying our fair share, but we may
Especially with
benefit from that
federal
advocacy.
stuff that's changing
there's a
like
lot
crazy.
going on, and
We need all hands on deck for what's going to, what possibly could come down federally while we're discussing, possibly closing schools.
Sabrina?
And Stephanie, if we do have to approve any board member to go to any of these. So
Right.
if there was ever one where we're like, hey, that's not one that we think would be beneficial for the information to come back to us, we can say no to it. We have to vote on it.
Right.
So, I've never seen anybody really vote, shouldn't say never, but we've always had board majority of that. So I don't want you to stop going out and not to go to professional development if it's something you feel it's going to be beneficial.
Meredith and then Mike.
So, Rob, to your point, we do have a very big voice, and they have noticed that we're not around. So it would probably be beneficial to them to have us back. Is there any way to negotiate the price? I'd be happy to make the call.
Spoken like a true salesperson, Meredith. Yes.
I am not sure, but I certainly will look into that. Yeah.
Mike?
I think it should be very telling to the other school districts that we're not a member. In spite of all their advocacy for us, we only got $640,000 more in state aid last year. So they have failed us, in my opinion, over the years I've been on this school board.
To add, I know I'm going back and forth, but to add, I know when I sat on that committee, the sunsetting, there's so many resolutions that just go nowhere too.
Mm-hmm.
So we are paying for a lot of things to go nowhere.
Okay.
So I have seen that in that time where I was, and I know Rob was that person, and we saw a lot of things get approved, and then 5 years later, still nothing has been done about them.
Jess?
The biggest thing is the advocacy component. I agree, but we do have local elected officials that should be advocating for CHM. I know it's not the same, but we should really, and I know you guys are engaging them a lot. So hopefully we see results.
Okay, great. Okay, so where do we end up with this? Allison, you'll get some detailed costs
Yeah.
in terms of, let's call it an a la carte menu, right?
Sure.
As to what we think we need. And then I think you want to have this discussion next meeting and then go from there and figure out what we do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. All right. I Any other board discussion items for tonight? I don't see any here, but, okay. Future items for discussion. So this will be one of them. Stephanie. Stephanie's active tonight.
Well, because I've been thinking about a lot
Yeah,
over the
it's-
summer.
She's coming out of the summer strong, man. Yeah.
It's crazy.
She's on
So,
vacation last meeting. right?
this is going to be a resolution, but maybe it could be an advocacy point through our legislative committee then if we decide not to go with the school board associations. I've noticed, and this was a resolution, I don't know, I don't think it went anywhere, but there are advocates that speak out in our community and talk really negative about every single school district on Long Island, who then pounce on our most vulnerable parents and charge them insane amounts of money to be their educational advocate. And there's zero qualifications in New York State for this. And it's the price when my kid was younger was a couple $100. Somebody would come and show up at a CSE meeting for you. I'm hearing parents over the summer spending $5,000 to $10,000 on these advocates. They're actually costing more than attorneys, and it's breaking my heart because I will go for free. You know what I'm saying? And they all know already. I get the text all the time. I can't do Sachem. I'm sorry, but I can go for free and help these parents just as much, if not more, because they're making. Not only are they making all this money on these poor parents, but they're also creating an adversarial environment with the school district and these families from jump, from pre-K, from kindergarten, from first grade. And it doesn't need to be that way, you know, and trust me, we can go back to my personal issues. I've threatened to chain myself to a tree. You know, there's been things, but I did that myself. You know what I mean? And I advocated for my child the way I see fit. It was air conditioning. It's been rectified. It was 20 years ago, but you know, for me to pay someone to come in and argue something that we do right by our kids, I really believe that. You know, sometimes it gets a little tense to take advantage of parents in their most vulnerable times of their childhood, their kids' childhood, and charge so much money. My thing was to ask to go forward earlier if we could with NYSBA resolutions, that we can all advocate for this stuff much earlier than when usually it's like NYSBA resolutions are due next meeting. And we're like, oh my God, no, we haven't spoken about it. So if we're not going that route, I would like to then maybe put that on the legislative committee, which they have 900 things now. But
Okay.
You're talking about like establishing training and guidelines for these advocates. Is that what you're talking about?
I would personally like to see that at least. You know, I have a big problem with people calling themselves educational advocates just because, you know, they felt like becoming one. And it's also spilling over into the special needs world with other avenues. But people have figured out desperate parents will pay, and it's heartbreaking. And it's you know, I feel like as a parent, as a board member, we need to start protecting our parents from these predatory people. You know, I'm not saying every single advocate. Some have really good hearts, but there are ones out there that charge a tremendous amount of money to help. And then at the end of the day, there was nothing accomplished.
Okay. No, so what's the discussion item that we're going to have? Is it more of openness by our special ed community to kind of share with them what we provide versus the need for an advocate? Or is it just giving this to the legislative committee, or what's?
I think it
What-
needs
what's
to
our
be a
discussion?
stricter stance. I think that giving parents, you know, they have SEPTA, they have this, but the parents that are getting taken advantage of or that need the help are in so deep that they feel like they're not getting helped by us and, you know, our organization. So I think almost if we could start advocating for legislation on this.
Rob?
Just Stephen, and just to piggyback what you're saying, this would be a perfect thing where we do resolutions through
Well,
NYSBA.
It was.
What it was
It
advocacy,
was.
and did it pass?
I have to look back at my notes. I don't remember. I don't think it did.
It didn't
It didn't
pass.
get the votes from.
One of the
school
issues and
districts.
what she.
It was the
brought up-
wording of it.
Right.
the wording
And,
of
and
it.
it's also,
Some-
there's so
some-
many that it gets buried.
Sometimes
So-
those resolutions, if the wording is off, it misses by 2%
Right.
from passing, you know,
Right.
but yeah, this is exactly what NYSBA would do, but it's got to be worded properly.
Yeah.
We didn't submit that one,
No,
did we?
no,
It
we
was another
supported
district.
it.
Yeah.
We supported it.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Just
ahead, Rob.
not really a future discussion item, but you know, lately I've been going back and forth to Sachem Pharmacy, and they passed that big empty lot where there used to be a district office. where are we with closing? You know, because that's money that we could really use. Every time I drive past an empty lot, it's
A
the
lot
first
looks
thing that
good
pops in
empty,
my
but
head.
yeah, let's,
Yeah,
where's the money?
we're right there. So Michelle, let you know.
We are right there. The last couple of items that we needed was a no further action letter from Suffolk County Department of Health on the removal of the underground storage tank. So J.C. Broderick prepared all the paperwork and documentation, and that's been submitted to the Department of Health. So we're waiting for that letter. And we still need like a final clearance on the title. And I actually was working with Allison before the meeting, and we're going to follow up tomorrow. We just need to find a document that references Sachem as school district number 10. That was like the last, because I said to Allison, we were at 10 before we became a 5. And we just need something that shows that 10 referencing Sachem. That was the last piece the attorneys reached out to us with. So we're going to go through some documents tomorrow. Tentative closing date is still set for September 15th. So that's still on everybody's calendar.
Okay.
I just have one item before we close, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Michelle, right? But we're opening in a week, right? How are we doing with transportation? And have we done dry runs, and what's happening with transportation?
So we have met with transportation every week over the summer, and our next meeting is tomorrow. We're meeting in person. So for all of our, it's really the small vans that become, because there's not very many changes in the large buses. So with the small van service, you'll remember we moved everything back to WeTransport. They were given the routes, I believe it was August 12th. They finished doing all of their routing and sent those routes back to us yesterday. So our transportation department is now reviewing the routes to make sure they make sense for us. We're meeting tomorrow to go over the final review of number of drivers that they hired, number of new vans that they purchased, everything that they're doing to make sure that we are ready for the opening of school. So we're doing everything we possibly can. Our route picks were yet for in-district transportation. The route picks were today. The dry runs are tomorrow.
Okay.
WeTransport had their route picks, and they are doing, I believe I put this in the Friday letter, their dry runs were starting tomorrow and going through Saturday.
Okay.
And those dry runs include reaching out to the families, leaving that notice in the mailbox that says, hey, my name is Tom. I'm going to be Johnny's, bus driver.
Okay.
Pickup time is this and drop off time is that.
Perfect.
So that should be happening all within the next several days.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
We can give you a further update in the Friday packet after
Perfect.
tomorrow's meeting.
Yep, great. Thank you. Okay. Anything else with future discussion items? Okay. Takes us to need a motion to enter into exec session for the purposes of discussing certain appeals. Motion by Rob, second by Steph. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, everybody. Our next meeting is actually a week from today, September 3rd at 7:00 start time. We're going back to school hours. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.